Coco Gauff feels better about missing serve after Jannik Sinner suffers same fate at AO 1-point Grand Slam. Gauff was ousted from the novelty event as she dumped his serve into the net against Vekic, much like Sinner had done against eventual winner Smith. Coco Gauff joked that she felt better about missing her serve at the AO 1-point Grand Slam on Wednesday, which proved to be her undoing at the inaugural event, after witnessing Jannik Sinner and Frances Tiafoe succumbing to the same fate. Gauff was ousted from the novelty event as she dumped his serve into the net against Vekic, much like Sinner had done against eventual winner Smith. Australian Smith became the first ever champion of the inaugural 1-point slam, which earned him $1 million, and Gauff lauded the efforts of the amateur. Smith got the better of Joanna Garland in the final of the novelty event at the Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne to get his hands on the AO 1-point slam crown. Smith triumphed over world number 2 Jannik Sinner, delivering the Italian his first loss at Rod Laver since 2023 during the AO 1-point slam event, where professionals are limited to a single serve. Sinner hit his serve into the net. Garland, who advanced to the final of the inaugural event, defeated Kyrgios and German Alexander Zverev on his way to the summit clash against Aussie amateur player Jordan Smith. Smith emerged as the first ever champion of the event prior to the Australian Open on Wednesday, earning $1 million. 1 point, shared silence. Coco Gauff, Jannik Sinner, and the mercy of missed serves. In tennis, the smallest margins carry the heaviest echoes. A ball kissed by the tape. A toe brushing the baseline. A serve that sails long by the width of a breath. Championships are built on these slivers, and heartbreak often lives in just one of them. At the Australian Open, where summer heat presses truth out of bodies and minds, 1 point can feel like an entire season collapsing into a single sound, the thud of a ball landing out. Coco Gauff knows that sound. She knows the peculiar ache of a missed serve at the wrong time, when the racket still feels warm in the hand and the future feels briefly unreachable. It is an ache that lingers not because of the miss itself, but because of what it represents. The fantasy of control punctured by the reality of chance. For an athlete whose career has unfolded under the brightest lights, Gauff has learned early that excellence does not immunize you against fragility. It simply teaches you how to carry it. So when Jannik Sinner, another standard-bearer of the sport's next era, found himself on the wrong side of a 1-point fate at the Australian Open, something shifted for Gauff. It wasn't relief. It wasn't schadenfreude. It was recognition. It felt better, not because pain was shared, but because it was human. Tennis pretends to be solitary, but it is secretly communal. The court is a rectangle, but the experience stretches across generations and geographies, stitched together by the repetition of moments that only players truly understand. A missed serve at a critical juncture is one of those moments. It is the sport's most private embarrassment, happening in front of everyone. You toss the ball. You trust the motion you've practiced 1,000,000 times. And still, the ball disobeys. Gauff's serve has been both a weapon and a question mark throughout her young career. When it clicks, it sounds like thunder cracking open a rally before it can begin. When it falters, it invites doubt, not just from opponents, but from the echoing chambers of expectation. Fans analyze mechanics. Commentators diagram grip changes. The world offers solutions as if confidence were a switch to be flipped. But confidence, like a serve, is a rhythm. Lose it once, and the body remembers. At the Australian Open, the margin was cruelly precise. 1 point, 1 serve, 1 decision that refused to bend toward mercy. Gauff walked away carrying the familiar weight of almost, the kind that doesn't bruise the body so much as it presses on the mind. The question followed her, as it always does, what if? Then Sinner's moment arrived. Different match. Different context. Same quiet devastation. Sinner, composed and meticulous, has built a reputation on clarity, clean ball striking, clean thinking, clean lines drawn across hard courts. To see him undone by the same narrow thread was to be reminded that tennis does not distribute justice evenly. It distributes experience. And sometimes, experience arrives disguised as disappointment. Watching from afar, Gauff recognized the look. The stillness after the point is over, when the crowd exhales and the player hasn't yet caught up to the moment. the eyes searching not for blame, but for understanding. It was the look of someone realizing that the difference between triumph and regret is sometimes nothing more than timing. That recognition softened something. It didn't erase Gauff's own frustration. It didn't rewrite the scoreboard. But it reframed the narrative. Missing a serve at a crucial moment no longer felt like a solitary failure etched into her personal history. It became part of a shared language spoken by champions and challengers alike. One point does not define a career, but it can redefine perspective. In the days after, Gauff spoke less about mechanics and more about meaning. About learning to forgive the body for its imperfections. About trusting that growth is not linear, and that even the most disciplined preparation cannot guarantee immunity from randomness. Tennis, she seemed to understand, is not a referendum on worth. It is a conversation with chaos. Sinner's fate at the Australian Open didn't make her loss smaller. It made it wider, wide enough to hold empathy, patience, and a renewed sense of belonging to the sport's long story. The greats have all been there. They just don't always talk about it. There is a quiet power in realizing that your lowest moments are not uniquely yours. For Gauff, that realization carried her forward. Not with the false bravado of, "next time I won't miss," but with the steadier promise of, "next time, I'll trust myself anyway." That distinction matters. The first is fear dressed as confidence. The second is confidence that has survived fear. The Australian Open will always remember its champions. But it also remembers its almosts, the matches decided by inches, the serves that didn't fall, the players who walked off knowing they were 1 point away from rewriting their week, their year, their story. Coco Gauff walked off with something else, perspective sharpened by empathy. In a sport obsessed with perfection, she found comfort in imperfection mirrored back at her by a fellow contender. And in that mirror, the missed serve lost some of its sting. It became not a scar, but a seam, one that binds players together across draws, across tours, across the relentless arithmetic of points and games. 1 point can end a match, but it can also begin understanding. And sometimes, that understanding is the real win.